After nearly 3 decades since the original, 28 years later is finally crawling toward audiences with a confirmed 2025 release. And this time, Netflix is at the helm. Danny Boyle's Apocalyptic Universe, which began with 28 Days Later, 2002, and continued in 28 Weeks Later, 2007, returns with a vengeance, bolstered by a new generation of terror, an updated vision of infection, and a reassembled cast that bridges past and present. Netflix has officially confirmed that 28 Years Later will premiere globally on October 17, 2025. The platform is reportedly backing not just a single film, but the beginning of a new trilogy, with Boyle directing the first installment and original screenwriter Alex Garland returning to write. This combination of creative forces has fans thrilled and curious about how this third entry will expand the infected landscape while still honoring the franchise's gritty, grounded horror roots. Production for 28 Years Later began in early 2025 in the UK, with shooting locations including abandoned cityscapes in Wales, parts of London, and Scotland. Much like the original film, Boyle has opted for a blend of digital and handheld cinematography to recapture the raw immediacy that made the first movie such a genre-defining hit. Cillian Murphy, who played Jim in 28 Days Later, is officially on board, not as a lead, but as an executive producer and possible cameo presence. That detail alone has sparked an avalanche of fan theories about how the franchise might loop back to its original protagonist. The film's synopsis has been kept tightly under wraps, but insiders suggest 28 Years Later will focus on a new outbreak tied to the mutated remnants of the Rage virus. Unlike the first two films, which focused heavily on survivors navigating a crumbling Britain, this entry reportedly expands its scope to a partially rebuilt society, one that thought it had moved on from infection only to face a devastating relapse. This evolution in setting allows the film to explore new kinds of horror, not just the collapse of civilization, but its fragility even after recovery. Netflix subscribers won't need to pay extra to watch 28 Years Later. The film will be available to all standard subscribers on the platform. However, there are whispers that Netflix is considering a limited theatrical release in select markets 1 week prior to streaming, a strategy they've used for high-profile films like The Irishman and Glass Onion. If that happens, it could be fans' only chance to experience Boyle's apocalyptic vision on the big screen. The cast features a mix of newcomers and returning legacy characters. Jodie Comer, best known for Killing Eve, is playing the lead role of a doctor-turned-refugee who may be key to understanding a new viral mutation. Alongside her, The Last of Us breakout Bella Ramsey joins the cast as a teenager born after the original outbreak, offering a generational perspective on survival in a world where the past is never truly gone. Meanwhile, Melba Staunton and Riz Ahmed round out the ensemble in undisclosed but reportedly morally ambiguous roles. Interestingly, Netflix is also planning to release a companion documentary titled 28 Years Later, Behind the Rage 1 week before the film drops. The doc will include interviews with Boyle, Garland, Murphy, and cast members past and present, offering behind-the-scenes insight into the development of the new trilogy and the lasting legacy of the franchise. The streaming giant is betting big on 28 Years Later to not only bring in horror fans, but to reignite cultural fascination with pandemic-era storytelling, a risky move in a post-COVID world. But with Boyle and Garland steering the ship, and a script that reportedly leans into social commentary as much as it does body horror, the film has all the ingredients to both thrill and provoke. Fans hoping to binge the first two films in preparation may be disappointed. As of June 2025, 28 Days Later and 28 Weeks Later are not available on Netflix, though they can be streamed via Hulu and rented on major digital platforms. However, industry insiders claim that Netflix is in negotiations to bring both titles to the service in September 2025 as part of a promotional ramp-up to the new film's debut. In terms of tone and themes, Garland has hinted that 28 years later will deal more explicitly with the climate crisis and the idea of rage as a metaphor for generational collapse and institutional failure. Where the original film dealt with the horror of being alone in an empty city, this new story may focus more on the horror of being surrounded by systems we thought were stable, only to see them unravel again. Netflix is expected to drop the first teaser trailer for 28 Years Later in July 2025, followed by a full-length trailer in September.